Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the playbook used by public health detectives. We're going to see exactly how they track down the causes of the world's most complex health mysteries, from car crashes to chronic diseases, and turn those clues into life-saving action. So, let's kick things off with a big question. How do you track an enemy you can't even see? And no, we're not just talking about viruses here. We're talking about the silent epidemics, those chronic, non-communicable diseases and injuries that have become some of the biggest health challenges on the entire planet. And these are the cases our public health detectives are constantly up against. See, we're not talking about a sudden outbreak that makes headlines. We're talking about slow-moving crises that demand a totally different kind of investigation, one that takes patience, precision, and a whole new set of tools. And believe me, the caseload is huge. We're talking about everything from complications in childbirth to the rising tide of hypertension and diabetes. These aren't just isolated incidents. They're massive systemic problems. Think road injuries, cancers, mental health crises that all demand methodical, evidence-based detective work. Okay, so let's get into it. How does an investigation like this even get started? Well, it all begins with asking the right questions. And I mean really specific questions. You have to forget the broad strokes, because the key is to narrow the focus down so you can find answers you can actually act on. Just check out this example right from the field guide. The question isn't, why do car crashes happen? It's a laser-focused look into human behavior. It's trying to understand the why behind one specific action or inaction that leads to somebody getting hurt. This is the starting point for finding a real solution. And here's the thing, to make sure they're asking the right kind of specific questions, investigators don't just wing it. They use structured frameworks to dissect the problem. And one of the go-to tools is the HAVE model, which breaks down any injury into 4 key parts. And this is a perfect way to see how it works in the real world. For a motorcycle crash, the host is the driver. The agent isn't the car itself, but the energy of the car, its speed. The vector is the motorcycle, the thing delivering that force. And the environment is everything else. Road conditions, traffic, you name it. By breaking it down like this, you suddenly see a bunch of different places where you could intervene. And, this kind of thinking isn't just for physical injuries. The exact same structured approach works for complex social and behavioral issues. A question like this about vaccination attitudes shows that these detectives are digging deep into culture, beliefs, and family dynamics to find the real root causes of disease. All right, so you've got your question locked in. What's next? Well, now the real shoe-leather detective work begins. It's time to gather the clues. And this means piecing together a story from dozens of different sources. And let me tell you, the evidence locker is vast. Investigators are pulling from police reports, hospital records, death certificates, insurance claims, even huge government health surveys. Each piece of data is a single clue that, when you put it all together, starts to paint the full picture. Okay, but here's what's so critical to understand. No single clue ever tells the whole story. Police records, great for crash details, but they miss tons of non-fatal injuries. Hospital records, they capture how badly someone was hurt, but they might not have a clue about what caused the crash. The magic happens when investigators layer these sources on top of each other to see what's really going on. But what do you do when there are no official records, which in many parts of the world is pretty common? Well, that's where this incredible tool comes in, the verbal autopsy. It's basically a structured, careful interview with family and community members to piece together the events that led to a death. It's a really powerful way to get crucial data in places with limited resources. Okay, so the clues are in. The evidence bags are full. The next job? Making sense of it all. This is the part where analysts take mountains of raw data and start the critical work of decoding the patterns hidden inside. And the way they do that is by tracking what they call key variables. Just think of these as the common threads that connect different cases. So in a cancer investigation, for example, they're meticulously tracking factors like age, diet, family history, and lifestyle choices like smoking to see which ones pop up over and over again. And to wrangle all this complexity, they use these brilliant standardized systems. The TNM system for cancer is a perfect example. It creates a simple, universal code to describe the size of the tumor, if it's spread to the lymph nodes, and if it has metastasized. It turns really complex medical details into structured data you can actually compare. And all this structured data lets them do some really powerful things, like calculate the total burden of a disease. I know a term like years living with disabilities sounds super complicated, but check this out. The formula is actually pretty straightforward. You just count the new cases,
multiply by severity score, and then multiply by how long the condition usually lasts. It's just a way to put a number on the human cost of a health problem.
So you might be wondering, what is the point of all this painstaking detective work? Well, it all leads to this, the final, most important step, turning all that knowledge into real-world, life-saving action.
Look at this finding from a study in Mozambique. It's amazing. By digging into the data, investigators were able to draw a direct line between a drop in child deaths and specific improvements in the health system. More nurses, more hospital births, better funding. This is the kind of evidence that tells governments exactly where their money can save the most lives. And if you want a slam dunk success story, look no further than Costa Rica. After finding high rates of neural tube birth defects, investigators recommended a policy to add folic acid to common foods. And this chart right here, this tells the whole story. The rate of these awful birth defects was cut by more than half.
That's a 71% drop in infant deaths from these conditions. A single, simple policy driven entirely by data, saving countless lives. That is the power of this work.
And really, that brings us to the core lesson of this entire process. It's a simple but incredibly powerful chain reaction. Data provides the evidence. Evidence informs policy, and policy saves lives. Period.
Because when you strip it all away, that's what this is about, right? You simply cannot solve a problem that you don't truly understand. All this methodical, often invisible work that these public health detectives do, it's the foundation that all progress is built on.
So, we've just peeked inside the investigator's field guide. You've seen the tools they use to frame questions, find clues, and decode patterns. So now I'll turn the question over to you. What public health mystery would you want to solve first?